Hey everybody, in this lesson we're going to talk about alkenes and alkynes. Now what are alkenes and alkynes? Well, first of all, we know that alkanes are single bonded carbons, but they are what we call saturated. Alkanes can become unsaturated as they form multiple bonds between neighboring carbons, and that's what we're going to talk about alkenes and alkynes. So there's two different ways this can occur. The first way is what happens if there's a double bond between the carbons. Double bond carbons, which looks like this, is what we call alkenes. And that means they're ending, the different chains will ending becomes -ene. The second way is if there's a triple bond. Triple bond carbons are where you have a carbon with 3 bonds between it, and it's what we call alkynes. And thus their ending becomes -ine. What we gotta note though is that these are now what we call unsaturated, because they don't have the maximum number, not max number of hydrogens. So what do these alkenes and alkynes look like? Well, the first image here is called ethane. Ethane is 2 carbons, and it's single bond, so it ends in -ane. But the moment there is a double bond, it ends in -ene. So again, ethane is single bond, ends in -ane. When the moment there's double bond, it's ethene. The moment there's a triple bond, right here, it's ethyne. So note the difference in how we change the ending because of how many bonds are possible. So how do we name multiple bonded carbons? Well, in this case, we number carbon chain where multiple bond is the lowest number. So an example of that would be if I draw this chemical here, C, 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 C. This is usually pentane. But the moment I put a double bond right here, I could now number this in a different way. So I could number it going left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In this format, the double bonded carbon, the first double bond carbon is on the second carbon. If I number it the other way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My double bonded carbon is now on the third carbon. So I rather number it going left to right in this case because it's a lower number. Okay, so that's how we number these. We number it from left to right. So in this case, this is called 2. Okay, 2 not pentane, it's pentene now. All right. So we always want to number the carbon chain where the multiple bond is the lowest number, and we name it with the first carbon, the double bond, where that double bond exists. How do we draw multiple bonds then? Well, to draw multiple bonds, it's the same as before, but we gotta make sure multiple bond starts where the number for the bond is. So let's try it with this first example here. We see that this is heptene. Heptene is 7. So we have 7 carbons here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But it's 2 heptene, which means after the second carbon, which is this one, we're going to have a double bond. Where the next thing we see is that we have a ethyl group on the 4th carbon, which is right here. So we have an ethyl group. And on the 3rd carbon, we have a methyl group. And this is 4-ethyl, 3-methyl, 2-heptene. We can fill out the rest of these with hydrogens. So this one will need 3 hydrogens. This one will need 1 hydrogen. This carbon in the middle, right, where the methyl group is, already has, it's fully bonded. This one will need 1 hydrogen, 2 hydrogens, 2 hydrogens, and 3 hydrogens. I could also draw it like a skeleton where I could draw it in the zigzag method. So there's 2 carbons, 3 carbons, 4 carbons, 5 carbons, 6 carbons, 7 carbons. Where after the second carbon, there's a double bond. And after the 3rd carbon, there's a methyl group. And after the 4th carbon, there's the ethyl group. So I could draw it like that too. So each of these can be drawn this way. Let's look at the next example. The next example is we want to name this chemical. We see that we can number this carbon chain in 2 different ways. We can number it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, where the triple bond is on the 4th carbon. But if we number it backwards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In this case, what we see here is that the double bond, or triple bond in this case, is after the 2nd carbon. So we always want to number it where it's the lowest number. In this case, we know this is 2. There's 6 carbon, 2 hexyne, because it's triple bonded and there's 6 of them. But wait, we have a bromine group right here, and it's after the 5th carbon. So we gotta name it still 5 bromo 2 hexyne. So what is the geometry of alkenes and alkynes? Well, the first thing is where these single bonds of carbon exist. So these single bonds right here, there is free rotation, because you can think of these as like 2 wheels attached to a differential or an axle. These 2 carbons can rotate amongst themselves freely. But the moment we have multiple bonds, a double bond or a triple bond, that stops. There's actually no rotation at the multiple bond. And because of that, it's really rigid. And not only that, but it's also flat, or what we call planar. So it's actually where it's flat or planar at multiple bond. And this gives us what we call cis and trans isomers. So what are cis and trans isomers? Well, they depend on the branches that attach to your multiple bond. Due to no rotation, you get different properties based on how the branches attach. So the first way is called cis isomers. Cis isomers are where the branches are on the same side. I'll show you an example of that in a bit. The opposite is called trans isomers. And this is where the branches are on opposite sides. So what happens here is, in this example, we see that in this case, the branches are on the same side of the double bond. So here's a double bond. And because they're on the same side, it's called cis 2, because it's still after the 2nd carbon. Butene, there's still 4 carbons. What happens if they're opposite side? If they're opposite side of the double bond, they're called trans 2-butene. And these 2 butenes will have different properties. So in this case, what happens here is we put cis or trans in the name if there are branches attached at double bond or at multiple bond. Your homework is actually going to be page 228, numbers 21 to 28, but it's ACE. That will limit the amount of questions you have to do. As always, make sure you keep yourself safe and healthy, and I'll see you soon.